Hello, welcome to another episode of Retro Reports. These are special videos where I cover the inside of the video game business. I will draw on my experience as a developer and on data wherever I can find it, with the goal of informing on matters of the industry that I feel are not discussed enough. Last episode we talked about business, but this time we will study the legality and sociology in the video game entertainment as it relates to the Stop Killing Games initiative. Before we begin, please go to Ross's channel, Accursed Farms, to learn more about the Stop Killing Games initiative in the EU and UK, links in the description. I also want to apologize in advance. In theory, I could produce an article in way more thought, but due to time constraints and a rapidly evolving timeline, I feel it is imperative that we strike while the iron is still hot. When I first started writing the script, the signatures were only 500,000. Now, not only are they above 1.1 million, but the initiative is so large it's made it into the history pages of Wikipedia itself. So why did I get myself involved? This is actually the third time I caught up with Ross's initiative. The first two times I just didn't have a YouTube channel. I remember a long time ago Ross going viral for the first time with the big YouTube channels. In my head I thought, okay, we snowballed critical mass, check it out, we made it, it's solved. And I tuned out with confidence. Man, was I fucking wrong. The background you're seeing here will be one of my favorite online games back in the day, Heroes of the Storm. I had such fond memories I decided to place it on my banner even. And yes, it is definitely a near end of support kind of game. Help Ross help you. You want games like, say, Breakers to live on after end of support, right?
Can't care about it personally.
Now it's on you. For me, the catalyst was games like Heroes of the Storm and Wildstar. It was a cool, cartoony world that had good classes, content, and the best housing system of any MMO, and by far the fairest free-to-play monetization I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of free-to-play games myself. Wildstar closed due to severe production cost on Carbine's side and a dwindling population. Unofficial servers do exist due to the help of a very small group of hardworking people, but only for a tutorial island. Meanwhile, as of speaking, Heroes of the Storm ended active content development years ago. The game still enjoys minor balance patches, a good population, in EU at least, and Blizzard's servers. How long will Blizzard afford its servers to play on? Who knows? What will happen after the fact? Who knows? Now, let's talk more about the technical challenges. Here are some fan preservation efforts. Little Big Planet, for instance. Media Molecule wiped the servers, getting rid of user-generated content all the way from 2008. Yet someone dumped an archive on archive.org where there's over 10 million levels hosted in an SQL database. All that data was thought lost. Some of the recovered maps have over 2,100 downloads from the archive. Same with Super Mario Maker 2. Someone's made a 2.3 terabyte SQL database that's actively monitoring every level updated through Nintendo, so that they may grab a copy before shutdown, because it will happen. Quite the dedicated people we have. In 2017, Norseman Games organized a crowdfunding campaign with support from players and developers in the realm's unlicensed private server community, who operated an unofficial update version of the game. In 2018, Norseman granted an exclusive license to develop and distribute the Realm Online to Red Labs, a company led by a player who had previously operated the private server. Red Labs published an official Fresh Start server in 2018 featuring new content, bug fixes, and events, still playable to this day. There are many fan reverse engineered servers that extend the life of the MMO, WoW, Star Wars Galaxies, and etc. Reverse engineered servers is the typical case of what saved some MMOs, but not all. It is time intensive and done by a very dedicated and extremely technical fan base. This is not the ideal case. Having source code is very nice, but abandonware, like Silent Hill PC ports, where places like My Abandonware and Internet Archive can host binaries and not be harassed by DMCAs for hosting IP material. This is more or less what SKG wants if the developer abandons their game. Older games can be hard to get in any playable state, with many being MS-DOS or finicky, but it is possible since the binaries are still there. Ross Scott himself plays many older games on Game Dungeon, where said games' files or binaries are patched to give quality of life improvements, widescreen, FPS lock, so on. In the past, games like Quake 2 and Half-Life had the model of client-server or a server that lists game servers as the norm. Besides that, there existed GameSpy, One.net, Heat.net, Dwango, Battle.net for Diablo originally, all sorts of servers to connect players to each other via a third-party client. Once people got fast internet, services like GameSpy and their brethren fell out of favor. When that stopped, it got a reverse-engineered client called OpenSpy, and the most popular server browser I know of is ASC, All-Seeing Eye, as of present. In the modern era, devs just gave up with hard-coded matchmaking and queuing. Why did it change? Best guess is to make it simpler for console users during the 360 PS3 era. Also, the game developers hosted their own servers to which people connected via matchmaking and queuing. Perhaps as an attempt to combat cheating, but it does cause additional resources on the developer's part, where a player can't just host their own server from within the client, or buy dedicated server binaries. It also makes sense to have your own servers when you have microtransactions or levels in rank or skins. Valve has this for some of their games, and it just requires your client to talk to another server to authenticate you. Think of Team Fortress 2. Perhaps maybe it's tied to your Steam account. Maybe. Some have voiced concerns that asking for the developers to give up their source code is improper. Not only did Ross clarify it is not mandatory, but to just merely take some extra effort for the devs to provide a workable, preservable state, whatever that way may be. To me, fundamentally, it's an obligation beyond merely gaming or legalism, an obligation to uphold civilization for the next generation of humans, just as our predecessors have done for us. As my friend Paulie McCoy put it beautifully into words, preserving a game's software binaries and source code in the slim confines of video games only is providing a path for future generations to learn how older games were designed and the methods with which they work. The source code tells a story, and most computer software engineers spend most of their times reading software code anyway. It's a path for the new generation to learn about the old. Time to address the lolcow in the room, Pirate Software. As someone who actually follows a lot of devlogs and tutorial channels, I have only ever seen Pirate 2 times. To me, from first glance, He was an irrelevant phony talking out of his ass. I never got the impression he'd be of any significant influence or authority to anyone. Ross mentioned one of the big YouTubers who used to support the SKG abandoned the cause because Pirate spread lies, and said YouTuber cowardly ran away. Thor undoubtedly wanted to cause damage to the movement for most probably malicious reasons. Back then, the Nepo baby had a lot more influence and goodwill, but we must not ignore that it is only now, when a popular opinion has been reached, that Pirate is in the content creator spotlight again. Perhaps it takes more than just popularity and algomaxing to enact tangible change all in all. Some initiatives like Grums's Uncensor Stellar Blade petition had high participation rate relative to his Twitter audience, while lasting merely a month. And for those out of the loop wondering, no, it's unrelated to the BBC skin, this was a year ago. Our initiative, on the other hand, enjoys peak intellectualism. Observe as Asmongold regurgitates Charlie regurgitating Ross.
That he didn't plan on doing that because he didn't want to be seen as using this for drama farming, because it would start to make the movement look less of like a legitimate initiative and more of just like drama slop content type thing. But he finally starts talking about pirate software here.
Okay, I really don't want to do this next part, but it's become a liability for the campaign for me not to. Our biggest critic by far is YouTuber and streamer Pirate Software, who goes by Thor. If your only exposure to Stop Killing Games has been this video, then you've been misinformed.
Some people always find time for the slop of the month, but not a minute of the day for consumer rights or the tech wisdom that some of them are known for.
It's an indie game about delivering packages from point A to point B. It's wild shit. So anyways, Death Stranding 2 is a game that I would 100,000% recommend to anybody. It's actually one of the best games that I've actually played this year. In fact, it might be one of the best games I've played this generation of gaming.
Only when victory is a finger away will you start giving the minimum amount of shit for real.
Annoyingly, it's just not true. It's not a thing for playing video games. It's a thing for chatting, and it's because more people value drama than they do value any individual single game. But I'm not going to get into drama. I am above that. I am enlightened. I am superior to all that. I will stand on my lovely pedestal above, and I will not be degraded. I will not devolve into talking about drama. So, Pirate Software.
You know what this reminds me of? Dragon Slayer, 1981. In Dragon Slayer, the story is set in a fictional kingdom where an inexperienced apprentice wizard, Galen, accompanied by his servant Hodge, his love interest Valerian, and his master Ulrich, encounter challenges as they hunt for a dragon. King Cassiodorus offers it virgins selected by a lottery twice a year. Only when his daughter is picked does he plead to Galen to slay the dragon. After much sacrifice from the heroes, King Cassiodorus swoops in at the end and theatrically stabs the dragon's corpse, while his herald loudly proclaims,
"All hail! Cassiodorus Rex, Dragon Slayer!"
But this is all primitive mumbo-jumbo, folks. True intellectuals like upper echelon are above the mob mentality, you see.
I want to try and give some insights on what I think is really happening with the pirate software situation, and explain why nothing here actually matters, because the internet mob will probably never get what they want. For anyone who's relatively unaware, even though news about this guy has been
with his ass wedged so hard in the fence, it would really hurt if he had any sort of real overtone shift. You see, we lol-libertarians over here, we gotta run defense for the victims of society. Because in our enlightened lol-libertarian wisdom, we decided it fair to give support to the village idiot instead of the Chad that actually sacrificed sweat and blood to make our lives better, you see. Instead of talking about online grifters all day, let's talk about the sociology and psychology of online petitions. Now, I'm not a professional sociologist, so I will interpret through academic articles. How do people interact with such community affairs, and why? In a 2019 ResearchGate.net article titled "A Multi-Appeal Model of Persuasion for Online Petition Success, a Linguistic Cue-Based Approach," examining online petitions in the public and political on affect change in society. Despite the increased popularity of these petitions, it remains unclear how the public consumes and interprets their content, and how this helps the creators of online petitions achieve their goal. This study investigates how linguistic factors present in online petition texts influence petition success, drawing upon the dual process theory of persuasion and the moral persuasion literature, based on an analysis of 45,000 petitions from Change.org, showing the petitions containing positive emotions more likely to succeed, opposed to popular belief petitions containing heavy cognitive reasoning and those emphasizing negative emotions. However, despite the increase in popularity of online petitioning, its success rate remains generally very low. Huang et al., 2015, Panagiotopoulos, Sams, Elliman, and Fitzgerald, 2011. Moreover, online petitions have occasionally been associated with jokes or hoaxes that undermine their reputation as a serious form of expression. Garber, 2013, Panagiotopoulos et al., 2011. Despite such drawbacks, successful petitions have managed to gain public support, stimulated concrete changes in public policy, and improved significant societal consequences. When emotional appeal operates on negative feelings and moods, it focuses on negative sanctions, and this may invoke strong negative emotions in individuals. Based on the meta-analysis of the effects of negative political campaigns, Lau et al. 1999-2007 found that despite the pervasiveness of negative campaigning, the literature in social science does not support that such campaigning wins voters, although it may attract their attention. Note, this is a research on political petitions, knowing that Ross was afraid of making this a political matter over petition regulations. Me personally, the way I interpret it is in the frame that people do not wish to actively participate in a cause unless victory is within close grasp, even when emotionally affected.
Pay no to stop killing games, and unfortunately today, it may be the end of Stop Killing Games.
The academic term for what Mudekar is experiencing is absence of social proof. If others aren't visibly participating, one may hesitate, thinking, why should I be the one? Another interesting document I want to note is Social Disorganization Theory's Greatest Challenge, linking structural characteristics to crime in societal disorganization committees. Caris E. Kubrin and James C. Wu. The origins of social disorganization theory date back to the early 1900s. In 1929, two researchers from the University of Chicago, Clifford Shaw and Henry McKay, began a series of studies using official records which showed that in the city of Chicago, rates of delinquency, criminality, and commitment to correctional institutions varied markedly by area. For our purposes, let's replace criminality with anti-consumerism and other antisocial practices we see online. After all, had criminality not been corrosive to society, why bother in the first place? Perhaps the greatest difference between socially organized and disorganized neighborhoods is the level of informal social control in those neighborhoods. Informal social control is defined as the scope of collective intervention that the community directs towards local problems, including crime. Kornhauser 1978, Shaw and McCain 1969. It is the informal, non-official actions taken by residents that combat crime in their communities, such as, for example, when residents question persons about suspicious activity or admonish misbehaving youth and inform parents of their children's misconduct. In essence, residents act as the eyes and ears of the community and their informal surveillance. And even simple presence deters others from engaging in crime. According to the theory, socially disorganized neighborhoods have a lower level of informal social control, and thus experience higher crime rates when compared to more socially organized neighborhoods. Under collective efficiency, scholars have begun to suggest that perhaps dense social networks of strong ties might not be sufficient. According to some, what appears to be missing is the key factor of purposive action. That is, just how ties are activated and resources mobilized to enhance informal social control. Sampson et al. 1997. Under social capital. Recently, criminologists have adopted the concept of social capital, defined as the investment of social relations with expected returns. In this sense, social capital refers to the potential for effective social action, as it does not directly encapsulate purposive action. In criminology, social capital's operationalization most frequently reflects Leon's 1999 higher-order conceptualization. Residents' trust level reveals the emotional investment that underlies impersonal relationships. In criminology, social capital refers to the networks, norms, and trust that exist within a community and help individuals cooperate for mutual benefit, especially in preventing crime and promoting social order. In this sense, social capital refers to the potential for effective social action, as it does not directly encapsulate purposive action. Fun side note, Ross himself studied criminology. Now I want to posit something to the audience. If criminologists have tools to measure social capital within neighborhoods, what's stopping criminal syndicates or corporations from utilizing the same onto their respective targets? Food for thought. So even according to criminologists, the ideal is not institutional figures like slop tubers to battle decay, but grassroots action. What is the catalyst for that to happen then? Perhaps ultimately, what the data suggests is, it is not enough to gather only negative or only positive emotions to build a movement, but both fear and hope. It is not enough to just persuade people or influencers with good arguments. Go, fight, defend your interests. Much to the dismay of most, I think Pirate Software did more to save the initiative than the YouTubers themselves would want to admit. Ultimately, our brave knight needs a dragon to slay, and perhaps that's how things should be. Fear and hope. One of SKG's biggest proponents, Louis Rossmann, made an interesting observation.
Because back in the day, we didn't have to care. When you bought a game like Gran Turismo 2 on your PlayStation 1, you didn't have to worry about any of this. And there was no worry about licensing. All the cars in that game, somehow, some way, back in the day, this was not an issue. And if the issue...
True, Louis, this used to not be an issue. Why is it now? Ultimately, when we drop the legal strategy, what we are left with is the shopping cart analogy for society. The sad truth is, social fabric in the 21st century has collapsed, and now we are left with no other recourse. As I was looking up videos on Ross's channel, I stumbled upon a pretty insightful video where Ross talks about depression versus survival instinct. This is the antidote to a lot of our social problems we put upon ourselves.
In fact, some of the feedback I've gotten from people is asking, how do I not get depressed over all this? Well, I'm not happy about the state of things, but here's where ignorance is bliss. See, I kind of look at the fate of humanity like this fog of badness. I don't know exactly what's coming, just that there's something coming and it's not good. Uh-oh, that doesn't look good. Don't want to go that way through the fog. Yeah, see, it's hard to be depressed when you want to survive. Do these people look depressed to you? They don't look depressed to me.
That's right, stop being so passive and dull, start making some fucking noise, with some fear and hope. Special thanks to Polly McCoy for contributing half the data in this video, and Silver Sterling for thumbnail design. Once again, please go to Ross's channel Accursed Farms to learn about the Stop Killing Games initiative. Also, I will urge all the EU and UK netizens to please continue to gather and support Ross in the future. The battle is won, but the war is far from over.